Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Join the official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to stay updated and get all the materials on the Telegram. The link to the channel can be found in the description box. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading from UPSC Civil Services examination point of view. Today let us take up the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 7th of September 2022, and these are the list of the news for today's discussion. So on this note, let's start our discussion from prelims and mains perspective of UPSC. Now let's take up this news appearing on page number 1 and also on page number 10. Now according to this news, the Constitution Bench of Supreme Court has asked both the central government and the state's government to provide their concerns regarding implementing EWS quota or quota for economically weaker sections of the society. Now this particular reservation, that is EWS quota, was provided through the Constitution 103rd Amendment Act. And this provides extra reservation of 10% apart from the existing reservation in educational institutions under Article 15 Clause 6. That is a new constitutional provision, namely Article 15 Clause 6 was added in the Constitution, and also another 10% for public services, for which Article 16 Clause 6 was added. Hence the Constitution 103rd Amendment Act provides for an extra 10% reservation to members of economically weaker section of the society in public institutions and also in public services. And this reservation of extra 10% will be other than the existing reservation for other backward class, scheduled caste and also scheduled tribe. So the reservation for other backward class is 27%, for scheduled caste it is 15%, and for scheduled tribe it is 7.5%. And this overall amounts to 49.5%, whereas reservation for EWS is 10%. Hence the overall reservation amounts to 59.5%. And this is the problem, as it crosses the limit set by Indra Sawhney judgment, which is 50%. So the overall reservation crossing the cap of 50% becomes a problem, because in the Supreme Court judgment of Indra Sawhney, which was also a 9-judge constitution bench, it put a cap of 50% for overall reservation unless there was a specific need for such reservation. Hence, the cap of 50% has become one of the major concerns with respect to Constitutional 103rd Amendment, providing 10% reservation for economically weaker section of the society. Now apart from this, there are other concerns also which emanates from the judgment of Indra Sawhney. Now as of now, the matter is sub judice, that is, it is in the Supreme Court, and very soon the Supreme Court will give its verdict. So in the present circumstances, we should know about the basic concerns or the major concerns with respect to the Constitution 103rd Amendment Act, important highlights of Article 15 Clause 6 and 16 Clause 6, and also some of the important highlights with respect to Indra Sawhney judgment. Now this topic becomes important both from the prelims and mains perspective, and in the mains gets covered under GS paper 2, especially with respect to important constitutional features including amendments, that is the Constitutional 103rd Amendment, and also welfare schemes and laws for the protection and betterment for the vulnerable sections of the society. Now first of all, let us go through some of the important highlights with respect to Indra Sawhney judgment. So this judgment was based on the report of Mandal Commission, which provided for reservation to other backward classes, mainly a reservation of 27%. So based on the report of Mandal Commission, government reserved 27% reservation or seats for socially and educationally backward classes within educational institutions and also for public services. Now there was another aspect with respect to this reservation. So according to the government memorandum, within the 27% reservation, preference was to be given to the poorer section among SEBCs or socially and educationally backward classes. Now this overall created the idea of creamy layer, or such section among the socially and educationally backward classes which did not need reservation. Further, the government memorandum also provided for 10% vacancies to be reserved for other economically backward section which were not covered under any other reservation. Now, to better understand the concerns highlighted in this article, based on which the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court will hear the EWS matter, let us go through the important provisions of Constitution 103rd Amendment Act, which added Article 15 Clause 6 and 16 Clause 6 in the Indian Constitution. So, Article 15 basically prohibits discrimination against any citizen on the ground of race, religion, caste, sex, or place of birth. However, according to Article 15 Clause 4, government can make special provision for the advancement of socially and educationally backward classes of citizens or for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Now, the Constitution 103rd Amendment has added a new provision, namely Article 15 Clause 6. So, this amendment states that the state or the government can make special provision for the advancement of any economically weaker section of citizens, and this special reservation will be regarding their admission to educational institutions, including private educational institutions, whether aided or unaided by the state. That is, whether the state governments provide any aid, that is financial help, or not. However, such reservation will not apply to minority educational institutions. Now, the minority institutions referred here is with respect to Article 30 Clause 1 of the Indian Constitution, which says rights of minorities to establish and administer educational institution. So, all minorities, whether based on religion or language, shall have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. However, this particular reservation under Article 15 Clause 6 will not apply to minority educational institutions. Now, it further says that reservation to such educational institutions would be in addition to the existing reservation and subject to a maximum of 10%. So, this is what has been provided under Article 15 Clause 6. Now, the Constitution 103rd Amendment also adds Article 16 Clause 6. Now, Article 16 of the Constitution basically prohibits discrimination in employment in any government office. However, the Constitution also provides for Article 16(4), whereby the government or the state can make any provision for the reservation of appointments or posts in favor of any backward class of citizens, which in the opinion of state is not adequately represented in services under the state. Now, while going through these provisions, just remember this key detail that under Article 16(4), the term used is any backward class of citizen with respect to public employment. However, under Article 15 Clause 4, the term used is socially and educationally backward class of citizen. So, Article 16 Clause 6 says that state can make any provision for the reservation of appointments or posts in favor of any economically weaker section of citizens in addition to existing reservation and subject to a maximum of 10%. It further says that reservation of up to 10% for economically weaker sections in educational institutions and public employment will be in addition to the existing reservation, which makes the overall reservation in the present circumstances at 59.5%. It further says that the central government will notify the economically weaker sections of citizens on the basis of family income and other indicators of economic disadvantage. Now, after understanding the important highlights of Article 15 Clause 6 and 16 Clause 6, let's go through the Indra Sawhney judgment again. Now, the Supreme Court upheld or allowed a 27% reservation for socially and educationally backward classes, but declared this 10% reservation as unconstitutional. So, it highlights that the majority judgment upheld the reservation of 27% in favor of backward classes and also allowed further subdivision of more backward classes within the backward classes. Hence, the advanced sections among the OBCs, that is the creamy layer, were to be excluded from the list of beneficiaries of reservation. However, the court struck down the reservation of 10% in favor of other economically backward categories. Now, this part of the Indra Sawhney judgment becomes critical for the present case, as it also provides for reservation strictly on economic criteria according to Constitution 103rd Amendment. Further, in the Indra Sawhney judgment, Supreme Court had kept the limit as exceeding 50% would have breached the equality clause, which was also part of basic structure. So, the Supreme Court in the Indra Sawhney judgment had kept a cap of 50% for providing reservation, and it also stated that breach of this cap would also amount to breach of equality clause provided under Article 14, which was also a part of the basic structure. So after understanding these important highlights of the judgment, let's look into these concerns provided in the newspaper. So the issues on which Supreme Court will deal this particular case will be, first, whether the Constitution 103rd Amendment Act removes the basis of Indra Sawhney judgment that quota cannot be given on a purely economic basis. So again, this is with respect to this part of the judgment, and hence providing reservation on economic criteria will be looked into by the Supreme Court. The second point highlighted is that whether the amendment breaches the basic structure of the Constitution in excluding the socially and educationally backward classes, other backward classes, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe from the scope of EWS reservation. So the question is that, can the other backward classes, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe avail reservation based on economic criteria? Or can these communities be excluded from provision of reservation based on economic criteria? The third point highlighted in this article is that whether the EWS reservation breaches the Equality Code and whether it also breaches the constitutional scheme by giving sanctity to the existing reservation, which is only created temporarily. The next important highlight of this judgment is that whether EWS quota breaches the 50% quota limit by permitting EWS reservation up to 10% over and above the existing reservation. And fifth, whether the imposition of EWS quota on private unaided institution violates the basic structure of the Indian Constitution. So these are some of the grounds on which Supreme Court will hear the matter. Now another concern is that the term class used under Article 46 of the Constitution refers to educationally backward class and not EWS. Now let's go through Article 46. It says promotion of educational and economic interest of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and other weaker sections. Now according to the government, when it was enacting the Constitution 103rd Amendment Act, the term other weaker section also included the economically weaker section of the society. However, the petitioners have argued in the Supreme Court that providing reservation in educational institution is a breach of basic structure, and also the term class under Article 46 of the Constitution refers to educationally backward class and not EWS. So this is another matter which the Supreme Court will hear. So Article 46 says that state shall promote with special care the educational and economic interest of the weaker section of the people. So the whole point of discussion is that whether these weaker sections of the people used under Article 46, whether it includes EWS or not. So the provision overall says that the state shall promote with special care the educational and economic interest of weaker section of the people, and in particular the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and shall protect them from social injustice and all forms of exploitation. So again, this is another ground of concern highlighted in the petition. Now the matter as of now is sub judice, so let's wait for the final verdict of the Supreme Court, which will be very soon. So we will again take up the matter once Supreme Court pronounce its verdict on this very important case. Now let's take up the next news, which appears as a snippet in the text and context section on page number 8. And this snippet is regarding the SHRI scheme. So on the occasion of Teachers' Day, the Prime Minister of India announced that 14,500 schools will be developed as model schools under the SHRI scheme, or Pradhan Mantri Schools for Rising India. And according to the scheme, both old schools will be developed and also new schools will be made up according to the new education policy. So it says that the Prime Minister said that the schools will be developed under the new scheme would become model schools encapsulating the full spirit of new education policy, and the pedagogy, that is the approach of teaching adopted in these schools, is expected to be more experimental, integrated and inquiry driven rather than based on rote learning. So in this news, you not only need to know about the important highlights regarding Pradhan Mantri Schools for Rising India, but also some of the basic highlights of new education policy of 2020. So according to the previous academic structure, there were 10 classes, that is from class 1 to 10 and class 11 and 12. And the entire school education was provided to children till the age of 18 years. Now this structure of 10 plus 2 has been changed as per the new education policy. So it says that this policy envisages that the extant 10 plus 2 structure in school education will be modified with a new pedagogical and curricular restructuring of 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So the first 5 years include foundational course for students, where for the first 3 years would be Anganwadi and preschool or Balvatika schools, and the next 2 years would be class 1 and class 2. Next would be the preparatory schools, which will include class 3 to class 5. Next, the middle school from class 6 to class 8 in the ages of 11 to 14. And next would be the secondary schools from class 9 to class 12 between the ages of 14 to 18. So this is the new pedagogical and curricular structure according to the new education policy. Now, according to the new National Education Policy of 2020, the 4 basic pillars of this policy are access, equity, quality, and accountability. And these 4 basic qualities will be enshrined in the Pradhan Mantri schools for Rising India. So in this regard, let's go through some of the important highlights with respect to the Pradhan Mantri schools for Rising India, and also some of the highlights which has been incorporated as a part of new education policy. So under the PM SHRI scheme, it will provide for upgradation and development of both old and new schools. So the Prime Minister has highlighted that PM SHRI scheme will be a new centrally sponsored scheme for upgradation and development of more than 14,500 schools across the country, and this will be done by strengthening the selected existing schools from amongst schools managed by central government, state government or union territory government, including the local bodies. The second important highlight is that the PM SHRI schools will showcase all components of National Education Policy of 2020, and it will also offer mentorship to other schools in their vicinity. Further, it will provide for holistic learning approach. So the aim of these schools will be to provide qualitative teaching, learning and cognitive development of the children, and also to create holistic and well-rounded individuals equipped with 21st century skills. And the focus here would be on both cognitive and learning technological skills. It then mentions about having a new approach in pedagogy or the method and practice of teaching. So this new approach of teaching will be more experimental, holistic, integrated, play and toy based, particularly in the foundational years, inquiry driven, discovery oriented, learner centered, discussion based and flexible and enjoyable for the children. The PM SHRI schools will focus on achieving proficiency in learning outcomes of every child in every grade. Further, the assessment in the PM SHRI schools at all levels will be based on conceptual understanding and application of knowledge to real life situations and will be competency based. These schools will be equipped with modern infrastructure such as smart classrooms, labs, libraries, sports equipment, art room, etc. And these modern infrastructure will be available to all students without any discrimination. Hence, it mentions the term inclusive and accessible. Further, it says that these schools shall also be developed as green schools, as it will provide for water conservation methods, energy efficient infrastructure and integration of organic lifestyle in the school curriculum. Further, these PM SHRI schools will ensure equitable, inclusive and diverse leadership in the respective regions. And this will be done by providing high quality education in an equitable, inclusive and joyful school environment, which will take care of the diverse background, multilingual needs and different academic abilities of children, and also make them active participants in their own learning process according to the vision of National Education Policy of 2020. So these are some of the important highlights for Pradhan Mantri schools for Rising India. Thus, this news becomes important mainly from your prelims perspective with respect to government scheme, and in this regard you should remember about the Pradhan Mantri schools for Rising India and also some of the important features with respect to the National Education Policy of 2020. So on this note, let us also go through some of the fundamental principles of National Education Policy of 2020. So it mentions about recognizing, identifying and fostering the unique capabilities of each student to ensure their holistic development both in academic and also in non-academic fields. according highest priority to achieving foundational literacy and numeracy by all students by grade 3, ensuring flexibility in the learning process, no hard separation either between subjects, between curricular and extracurricular activities, or between vocational and academic streams, having a multidisciplinary approach and a holistic education across sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, and even sports, as this will ensure unity and integrity of all types of knowledge. Emphasis on conceptual understanding of topics rather than rote learning. Having an atmosphere of creative and critical thinking to encourage logical decision making and also pursue innovative skills. Ensuring ethical, human, and constitutional values like empathy, respect for others, cleanliness, courtesy, democratic spirit, spirit of service, respect for public property, scientific temper, liberty, responsibility, pluralism, equality, and justice. The NEP further promotes multilingualism and the power of language in teaching and learning. It also incorporates life skills such as communication, cooperation, teamwork, and resilience. The policy focuses on regular formative assessment of learning to discourage the coaching culture. Provision of extensive use of technology both in teaching and learning process. Use of technology to remove language barriers. Increasing access for Divyang students and educational planning and management. Further, the NEP focuses on respect for diversity and respect for local context in curriculum, pedagogy, and also policy making. And also to keep in mind that education is a concurrent list subject and not under the union list specifically. It further ensures full equity and inclusion as cornerstone of all educational decisions to ensure that all students are able to thrive in the education system. The policy focuses on having synergy in curriculum across all levels of education, that is from early childhood care to higher educational standards. The policy recognizes that teachers and faculties are the heart of the learning process. Hence, the recruitment, continuous professional development, positive working environments, and service conditions shall also be considered. The policy provides for a light but tight regulatory framework to ensure integrity, transparency, and resource efficiency of the educational system through audit and public disclosure. And it also encourages innovative and out-of-box ideas or thinking through autonomy, good governance, and empowerment. Further, the policy focuses on outstanding research and a continuous review of the process based on sustained research and regular assessment by educational experts. So these are some of the fundamental principles of National Education Policy of 2020. And most of these policies have been inculcated while formulating the Pradhan Mantri School for Rising India. Now look into this question asked by UPSC in the year 2020 in GS paper 2. So this question is with respect to the new National Education Policy. So the question says that National Education Policy 2020 is in conformity with the Sustainable Development Goal 4. It intends to restructure and reorient education system in India. Critically examine the statement. And SDG 4 is with respect to ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So in this context, this particular news with respect to PM SHRI scheme and also some of the salient features of National Education Policy of 2020 becomes very important both from our prelims and also mains perspective, particularly under GS paper 2. Now this particular news appearing on page number 6 mentions about the environmental concerns, especially regarding the Vizhinjam port construction in Kerala. So this article says that for Vizhinjam port, business as usual is not an option and it is politically hard but developmentally critical to run port projects with coastal management sustainably. So this article becomes very important in order to understand various concerns of construction of port. And this news regarding port construction and its environmental concerns become a part of GS paper 3, especially with respect to economic development and also environment, as construction of ports has been provided as part of infrastructure, and under the section of environment it mentions about environmental pollution and degradation and also about environmental impact assessment. So this news highlights about the development of Vizhinjam International Deep Water Multi-Purpose Seaport, also known as Vizhinjam Port. So this particular port in Kerala is an under construction port on the Arabian Sea coast in Trivandrum. So here you should know about what is a deep water port. So it is a fixed or floating man-made structure or a group of structures other than a vessel which is located beyond state or seaward boundaries. And it is used as a port or terminal for transportation, storage and further handling of oil or natural gas for transportation to or from any particular state. Now another important point highlighted here is that water in the regular ports are not more than 20 feet deep, whereas water in the deep water port is compatible with large heavy loaded ships which may require the water to be 30 feet in depth or even more. So this is the basic difference with respect to a deep water port and a regular port. So the construction of the Vizhinjam port in Kerala has led to various concerns as Kerala is overall a coastal reliant economy. So on this note, let's go through some of the concerns. Now while understanding the coastal and environmental impact of construction of port, few aspects becomes important such as its location, the overall period for which the port is being constructed, as it may lead to coastal degradation and also degradation of the marine environment, and also how will the operation of the port impact the marine life. So the first concerns highlighted in the article is regarding the heavy financial burden on the state, that is the state of Kerala, as despite providing 67% of the finance, still the rate of return for state of Kerala for this particular port will be very low as compared to the agency who will manage the port authorities. The next point highlighted is regarding the socio-cultural impact, especially with respect to displacement of the local communities in the region. Now this may also be possible because of continued coastal erosion on the land where they were living. Now another very important concern highlighted is regarding the irreversible impact on the ecology, and it includes destruction of marine life because of port construction, impact on livelihood of those communities and families who were displaced because of port construction, and siltation, coastal erosion and accretion. Now siltation refers to deposition of silt or clay or dirt impacting water quality. Now this picture basically represents an example of siltation. And in siltation, soil or other types of dirt flow along with the water or flow along with the river, and these gets deposited. Now accretion leads to gradual increase in deposits. So there can be both cases of coastal erosion and also accretion of land. Now another very important concern highlighted in this article is regarding the impact on water quality, thereby affecting the entire marine ecosystem. Now because of construction of ports, the quality of water gets deteriorated or even stagnated. And stagnation of water leads to growth of phytoplanktons or coliform and other sort of bacteria. Now because of growth of these phytoplanktons and bacteria, this reduces the dissolved oxygen in the water. And because of this, it leads to killing of marine lives. So deterioration of quality of water or stagnation of water further impacts marine life as it leads to reduction in dissolved oxygen in the water. The stagnation of water further impacts the marine ecosystem. Now another concern is that changes in water flow near the port because of construction further damages the shores and also leads to more erosion of land. Now the article further mentions about impact of construction of breakwater and continuous dredging. Now breakwater is the artificial barrier constructed to enclose harbors. So as you can see in this particular picture, this breakwater is constructed to enclose harbors and also keep the harbor waters undisturbed by the effect of heavy and strong sea waves. So overall, it restricts the flow of water. So it highlights that breakwater enables the use of the enclosed area as a safe anchorage for ships and facilitates cargo loading in comparatively calm waters. Now this also leads to stagnation of water, thereby affecting or impacting the marine life. Further, continuous dredging. Now dredging refers to clearing the mud from the bottom or taking out mud. Now because of this, it also affects the marine life and also impacts the shoreline. Now another concern highlighted regarding construction of Vizhinjam port is that the Vizhinjam Poor stretch is a part of biodiversity hotspot, And according to this article, it should be recognized as marine protected area. And hence construction in this very sensitive area will further impact the flora and fauna of this region. Now, another very interesting fact has been observed by the National Institute of Ocean Technology. So, according to its report, there have been significant erosion of the north of the port and significant accretion on the south of the port. Although, according to this report, the reason for this erosion and accretion is climate change. However, even construction of port can lead to such erosion and also accretion of the port area. And another reason highlighted in the article is regarding the anthropogenic climate change, that is climate change caused by human-induced activities, as the anthropogenic climate change has led to increase in sea level around the Kerala coast. So these are some of the concerns which have been highlighted in this article regarding construction of Vizhinjam port in the state of Kerala. So the question remains as to what can be done. So the article says that there is a need to apply polluter pay principle, and the adverse impact on environment and marine ecosystem should be compensated by the developer. Further, to provide compensation to displaced people and their families. The article says that environmental impact assessment must be done compulsorily prior to the construction of port, and all adverse impact of such construction must be clearly highlighted. Further, there is a need to consider environment and marine pollution over economic principles, and the agreement to construct port in such sensitive area must also contain provision for mid-course correction if construction of ports for long period of time degrades the coast and also increase marine pollution beyond repair, thereby affecting the marine life. So these are some of the steps which can be taken regarding construction of port in sensitive areas, as the construction of port takes a long period of time, thereby impacting the coastal and marine ecosystem of the region. Thus, this article becomes important mainly from the perspective of environmental concerns and also from the perspective of infrastructure regarding port development. Now, this article appears on page number 6, and it says India 7% plus annual growth and the realities. Given the desire to achieve developed country status in the next 25 years, the required rate of growth should be in the range of 8 to 9%. Now, this article says that recently the National Statistical Office has released the Gross Domestic Product estimates or GDP estimates for the first quarter of April to June 2022. And in this regard, the article critically analyzes the major highlights of the latest GDP estimates. Now, this article contains a lot of statistics, particularly with respect to the first quarter estimates for the month of April to June. Now, UPSC does not ask statistics-based questions, particularly with respect to quarter-based growth. So on this note, let's go through some of the key areas of growth as highlighted in this article. So this article says that GDP growth rate is estimated to be 13.5% in comparison to 20% growth in quarter 1 of 2021-22. Now the article estimates that the annual GDP growth rate would be around 6.7%. Further, the article says that agricultural growth has remained robust, showing a growth of 4.5% in first quarter of 2022-23. Now, which is the highest growth over 9 consecutive quarters. However, the growth in the manufacturing sector has remained below the overall average. Now, this article further talks about aggregate demand. So, according to the expenditure method, GDP is calculated as per C plus G plus I plus X minus M. Let's understand these terms. Now, C refers to or denotes private final consumption expenditure. G denotes government final consumption expenditure. I denotes investment, and X denotes export, and M denotes imports. So X minus M refers to export minus import. So regarding the first quarter of investment, PFCE, that is private final consumption expenditure, accounts for the highest contribution followed by investment. And the least contribution is with respect to X, that is export minus import. So here it says that being a majorly importing country, India's imports are higher than exports, and hence the contribution of net export to India's GDP is usually negative. However, in the first quarter of 2020-23, the net export was minus 6.2% due to increase in imports and decrease in exports. And such an adverse contribution of the net exports to real GDP growth is an all-time high for the 2011-12 base series. So based on these understandings, the author have suggested certain recommendations. The author have said that to become a developed country in the next 25 years, the required growth rate should be in the range of 8 to 9%. In 2023-24, we must try to achieve a growth rate of 6 to 7%. And this could be done through enhanced public investment. It further says that the government should continue to increase public investment to crowd in private investment and promote growth. Now, this news appearing on page number 8 in the text and context section says the controversy over K.K. Shailaja's nomination for the Ramon Magsaysay Award. Now, K.K. Shailaja is the Health Minister of the state of Kerala, and she has been nominated for the prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award. However, she has refused to be considered for the award. And the reason is that the political party to which she belongs has cited the anti-communist credentials of the former Philippines president, in the honor of whose the award is given. And according to the political party, Ramon Magsaysay was a staunch anti-communist who oversaw the defeat of communists in Philippines in the 1950s. And it is because of this, the Health Minister of Kerala has declined to be considered for the prestigious award. Now, Ramon Magsaysay was born in 1907 and served as the 7th President of Philippines from December 1953 to March 1957 till the time he was killed in a plane crash. Ramon Magsaysay awardees, annually selected by the RMF Board of Trustees, are presented with a certificate and a medallion with an embossed image of Ramon Magsaysay facing right in the profile, as you can see in this particular picture. And the Ramon Magsaysay Award was conceived to honor greatness of spirit shown in the service to the people of Asia, regardless of race, gender, or religion. And it is also considered as Asia's Nobel Prize. Now, from 1958 to 2008, the award was given in 6 categories annually. These were government service, to recognize outstanding service in public interest in any branch of government, including the executive, judicial, legislative, or military; public service, to recognize outstanding service for the public good by a private citizen; community leadership, to recognize leadership of a community towards helping the disadvantaged have fuller opportunities and a better life; in the field of journalism, literature, and creative communication arts; in the field of peace and international understandings, to recognize contributions to the advancement of friendship, tolerance, peace, and solidarity as the foundations for sustainable development within and across countries; and emergent leadership, to recognize an individual 40 years of age or younger for outstanding work on issues of social change in his or her community, but whose leadership may not be broadly recognized outside his community. Now, the category of emergent leadership was inaugurated in 2000 and is supported by a grant from Ford Foundation. Now, starting in 2009, the Ramon Magsaysay Award is no longer being given in fixed award categories except for emergent leadership. And the Ramon Magsaysay Award is presented in formal ceremonies in Manila, in Philippines on 31st of August, which is the birth anniversary of the Philippines president, and whose ideals has inspired the award's creation in 1957. Now, the criteria for Magsaysay Award becomes important mainly from your prelims perspective and gets covered under the aspect of current events of international importance. Now, based on our discussion, this becomes your question for the day. The question is, Vizhinjam deep water port is situated in the state of? Options are A. Tamil Nadu, B. West Bengal, C. Telangana, and D. Kerala. Now, coming to the answer of yesterday, the question was, consider the following statements. First, the National Education Policy 2020 seeks to increase government's expenditure on education to 3% of India's GDP. No, this is incorrect, as it intends to increase the government's expenditure on education to 6% of India's GDP. Second, presently the gross enrollment ratio of females in higher education is more than that of males. Yes, this is correct. Hence, the question was, which of the statements given above are correct? So the correct answer was B, that is 2 only. With this, we come to an end to today's discussion. Thank you for watching DNS.